What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In the last couple of days with the videos that I've released, I've gotten some comments asking which build I'm using with the Technomancer, what my gear looks like, what skills I'm using, what my class, well, I think the abilities are easier to understand. And so I thought we could quickly just have a look at the build. This is the same build that I use to do my farming runs with, as well as my CT15 clears. And I'm not trying to make a 20-minute video here, but I do have quite a bit to go through, so we'll look at the gear, we'll look at the skills and everything like that, and I'll explain some of my reasoning behind picking that. But as an overall thing, I just want to say that while this build does use blighted rounds, and I definitely consider this using a cookie cutter high-end Technomancer build as the blueprint, my goal always with this character was that I wanted to build something that was relatively easy enough to pull together because it doesn't require a lot of legendaries, or rather the mods on those legendaries, but also that I wanted something that could very easily farm high level content without having to do weird things like weapon switching so that I get the first bullet effects, or skill cycling or anything like that. I just wanted something that was super straightforward, very simple, point and click, aim your guns at something, shoot, and just mow your way through everything. Even though I have 3 skills on this build, I basically only use blighted rounds, and I only really use the 2 turrets when I'm in shit. So that's basically the thing. So in any case, without any further ado, let's jump right in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start us off with the skills, as I've mentioned. So of course, blighted rounds is on here. I do have blighted turret and cryo turret on here as well. And that I use in situations when I know that I'm going to be fighting, for instance, with a bunch of stuff coming at me or in a room or anything like that. Because definitely the freezing from the cryo turret and the blighted turret giving stuff toxic, and you'll notice that for my skills, does give me some more survivability and more damage. So that definitely does help, especially if you're going up against a boss or something like that, because a timely freezing of a boss is essential for getting that little bit of damage in that kills him before he comes out. If we go over to the class abilities, top tier is obviously the one if you're going for blighted rounds, especially if it's focused around an assault rifle. So just going through the skills here, just some highlights. I mean, this is a fairly standard loadout, but some highlights which you obviously have to try and get is exposing toxin, which gives vulnerable and essentially increases the effect of the vulnerability on it. That's pretty good. That's very good. You obviously do want to pick up Assault Master if you're using an assault rifle. For a very long time, I wasn't using assault rifles with this build. I was actually using LMGs. I was even using a double gun at a time, and then of course that's not really useful. So however, this does shine if you get yourself a really fat, nice assault rifle, because then you're able to benefit from all the additional damage that you get from this one node. Over here we also have what is I consider the thing that makes this build so glass cannony, along with all the other shit of course, and that is that this increases the damage that you get from all sources by 15, but you also deal 20% more damage, which is pretty huge. UT14 clips is just phenomenal because it gives you double the mag size. So on a tactical assault rifle, you'll have 45 bullets instead of 30, which is fucking amazing, especially if you're using some kind of a mechanic that keeps reloading your blighted rounds back in, which is the standard cookie cutter setup. This is going to make a big difference for you being able to just keep that blighted rounds buff up and kill as many things as possible without having to utilize the second clip buff or something like that. Last but not least, this just obviously activating decay increases weapon damage. This is good for whenever I drop the turret or whenever I increase blighted rounds. So when you hit blighted rounds for the first time, you're going to get this buff for 10 seconds, but then if blighted rounds stays up the entire time, you're not going to keep getting the buff. So then it's a cool way to refresh this buff, is just to throw the turret out. You get that additional damage, so it's pretty cool. Okay, so that covers the class skill, the class and the skill. So let's talk weapons and gear quickly. Now, first and foremost, this is a very glass, as I've mentioned, glass cannon build with a lot of upfront damage and not a lot of mitigation. So the idea here is obviously to kill stuff as fast as possible. And the way, of course, how the Technomancer works is that you get health from all of the damage that you deal. So this build doesn't utilize any effects that make the toxin stronger, that get, necessarily feed off or burn damage or anything like that. But basically just the idea is just to do as much gun damage as possible and any of the mods that you have stacked on the guns, and that's how I essentially get my health. Also, one last thing is that I prefer, or this build prefers, long range engagements, which is a general thing for the Technomancer in any case, because you have the inherent 15% additional damage at long range, which is, you know, to this class. But at the same time, I have taken some steps to increase the ability to also deal damage into a shorter range, so that if stuff does get close to me, that I'm not, you know, up shit creek. Okay, any case. When it comes to the weapons, I don't really need to discuss all three, because I only ever use the one, because that's, again, I said before, I wanted to make this build as straightforward as possible and something that I could play while I'm fucking half asleep, and that would just basically work by a lot of upfront damage and me not having to, you know, swap weapons, swap skills, be cute, anything like that. I just want to fucking cut through everything. So, of course, I've used the method where you take the DLC weapon that you get, and then you level it up and you try to get the best possible damage roll on it when you switch it to tactical rifle. Quickly, some points about tactical rifle is the assault rifle tactical variant does by far the most damage right now when it comes to rifle class weapons, and I believe it's even more powerful than snipers and automatic snipers and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's a bug in the game right now. If you go on Reddit, if you look around, I have spent some time, and there hasn't been a definitive statement that, yeah, this works as it's supposed to, or there might be an issue. But as a whole, the tactical class itself has extremely high accuracy, has really good stability, and the range is okay. It's not like, you know, shit your pants good, but it's not bad. But the bottom line is this allows you to really, you know, drop stuff in 1 to 2 bursts, unless it's a captain or a fucking elite or a boss or something like that. But you're basically just able to cut through stuff by just 1 burst at a time. And again, this is hyper efficient with blighted rounds, and if you have a reload mechanic and just keeping that, you know, going the entire time. Now, the 2 mods that I have on here is Bone Shrapnel, which comes with that DLC weapon, and then I have Killing Spree on there. Killing Spree is, of course, from the Amber Vault, so that's a legendary that you would need to get hold of so that you can get hold of this mod, because it is phenomenal. It is probably one of the best damage mods in the game. And the stats on the weapon itself are crit damage, status power, and long range damage. Now, in reality, that status power, I would love to have that be something else, but at the moment right now, this weapon on its own is an extremely high damage roll. It's 92.9. Of course, there are screenshots of people getting close to 99. I think 99 or 100 might be the maximum. So this is by far not the best roll, but it's definitely the highest that I've gotten yet. And this thing fucking shreds, as you would have seen in the other videos that I've already recorded. Now, Bone Shrapnel and Killing Spree together is a fantastic combination because they complement each other. So you're getting a lot of on-point damage on whatever you're shooting, but also the Bone Shrapnel, the detonations of Bone Shrapnel deal a lot of damage to everything around the target that you're shooting as well. So obviously the strat here is, out of a group of mobs, don't shoot the little ones, or you can, I suppose, but you see a lot more mileage, or if you hit the big targets, and the splash damage from Bone Shrapnel will take care of the little baby ones around it. That's basically it for the weapon. And I will, when we come to the end of the build, I'll discuss what I have over here, because I just have some fun suggestions of things that you can try. But basically, Bone Shrapnel Killing Spree is going to be your... Actually, let's do that now. If you don't have access to Killing Spree yet, for a very long time, I was using this LMG. And this LMG, I had Bone Shrapnel, and then I had the Claymore Turret mod on here. So this was dealing a shitload of damage to everything around my target. And this worked very well. I played with it up until about, I guess I would have to say, if I think back, maybe CT11, CT12. And so this served me very well. Of course, you'll see it's only level 47, and the damage roll is very low compared to the 92.9 that I have on this assault rifle. But this worked for me incredibly well, and it up until the point where I had access to Killing Spree. Of course, I could now take this and put Killing Spree onto this instead of the Bone Shrapnel, and that would also be a fairly decent roll, and I could level that up. But again, any LMG that has Bone Shrapnel on, you could, you know, potentially, you know, stack some other mods behind that, or, you know, Killing Spree on that again, like I said, and you'll have that if you're a person that does not want to use an assault rifle. The juggler, which you can buy from the vendor in your camp, is phenomenal as well, because the damage roll is, while not being very high, This is a very decent assault rifle. It's a standard one, so it's unfortunately, you know, it's a full clip that you shoot out. It's not like the burst fire, like, so you lose a little bit of damage there. But the scrap grenade mod on here is ridiculous, especially combined with another weapon. If you're doing like shoot, reload, shoot, and then when they get close, you switch to the other weapon or something like that. However, you can also swap the minefield on here, for instance, for bone shrapnel, which again makes the gun quite effective. Another good combo that I used for a very, very long time as well, and I actually, you know, in some cases think that this is superior due to the fact of how fast it can clear mobs around your target, is of course Thunderbird with Ultimate Storm Whip, which is on it by default, but then Strings of Gauss on there, which I got from the Bolt and Thunder legendary. So that's just some suggestions on alternatives that you can use. I've also used Inferno Seed with Wrath of Moloch and Killing Spree on there as well. Of course, that Killing Spree can be swapped for Bone Shrapnel as well. So generally, you get the idea here. Those two mods are the ones that I love, and most of my weapons use that, and they work very well in this particular build. Now, moving over to the armor, first things first, this is by no means a complete build and everything like that, and there's a lot that can be improved here. Just even looking at the armor rolls on the armor, these two are quite weak compared to two of my other pieces, so there's obviously some improvement there. But again, there's nothing that I can't do with this build right now. You'll notice that on all of my 5 gear pieces, I looked for bonus firepower, close range damage, and long range damage. So these are the steps that I took to, for instance, make my build as glass cannon as possible, but you know, as high as damage as possible, but also to give me a little bit more additional damage once they get out of the long range into the close range area. So that's why I have the 50% extra close range damage. I use Dum Dum bullets on here for the additional assault weapon damage, and Bloodlust. Now this is also a really good damage dealing mod, and phenomenal at just increasing your overall damage throughput, especially as you're mowing. You know, if there's 2 small targets and a big target, you kill the 2 small targets first. That gives you like 35k extra damage or firepower, and then you just lay into the big target. On this here, I have Captain Hunter, so that's also from a legendary. It's from the Gloves of the Cannonball, if I'm not mistaken, and this just increases your damage to elites by 25%, which is really handy, but by no means essential. Look, if your damage is consistent enough, this just makes a difference of, let's say, something that would go down in 3 bursts goes down in 6 bursts. So still not, you know, the end of the world, but it does make a difference. My first mitigation ability of the 2 that I have on this build is Anya, and that's Perseverance Shield. For me, Perseverance Shield has saved my ass a lot. If you get dropped down below 30%, you get this 8,875 shield. This happens every 5 seconds, so a lot of the times, by the time the shield goes down, because you're obviously rolling as well and avoiding the damage, don't stand in the shit, then the next shield pops up. So this works really well. On my pants, I have Radical Therapy, which gives me 15% additional damage to Toxic, which is a no-brainer because I'm applying Toxic to everything that I'm shooting because I've got Blighted rounds on. So yeah, Plate Piercer is one of the dead abilities, I would say, on my gear right now, because it increases my critical damage by 10%, which is a bonus of my armor piercing. I am not stacking armor piercing, so this is not giving me a big enough bonus to be on this gear. But this, for instance, is an example of a mod that is not giving as much as it could and is likely to be replaced down the line by something else. On my gloves, I've got the Trick Up the Sleeve ability, which is how I keep reloading my Blighted rounds in. And then I have my second damage mitigation ability, which is Mitigation from Death. Now, what this means is, as I'm aiming down sights and I'm killing enemies, I get 45k additional armor for every enemy that I drop. So when you drop 3, you have almost 150k extra. That takes my damage reduction, which I have right now, of 50 to about 76, 77, 78% damage reduction. So as long as you're aiming down sights and shooting stuff, you become really hard to kill, or harder to kill. So this is a phenomenal ability and was a good addition that once I put this in, I became a lot more formidable in being able to handle damage and being able to push higher challenge tiers. Next we've got boots of the, well, I don't have to say the name, just my fucking boots, right? And here I have rejuvenation, which essentially says that whenever you gain health, You get firepower, anomaly power, and armor. Yes, this is kind of like a mitigation ability as well, but it's also an additional damage ability. Since every little bit of damage that you deal with the Technomancer gives you health, this thing is constantly proccing. It is never on cooldown. As soon as those 10 seconds are up, it procs again. So again, just a good ability that has almost uptime 24/7 because you're always gaining life. And then here is my second dead ability or dead mod that I have on my gear, and that's Toxic Piercer. Toxic Piercer makes the effect of the toxic, so the poison effect of it stronger, and it increases it by 100% of your armor piercing. But unless you're stacking anomaly, or I suppose anomaly and status power, then the net gain of this is not really good enough at all. And so this is another candidate for replacement. Now, all in all, this as I said, the build has an extremely high firepower, and all of my damage is coming from shooting my guns. Now, what would I do? Okay, let's do this first. So let me tell you the top 4 things which make this build work. The first thing is Killing Spree. If you don't have Killing Spree, you'll notice a lot less damage coming from a build like this. You can still have Bone Shrapnel, all those other things, but Killing Spree is really going to make this shine. The second most important thing I would imagine is that you need a high damage primary, and preferably it needs to be Assault Rifle in the tactical variant, because again, you're going to notice the best damage from that, and it's going to suit the style of the build, which first of all wants long-range Assault Rifle kills. The third one is Bloodlust. Now, Bloodlust, as I said, the minute you slap this onto this gear, you will notice immediately a pretty big damage increase. And so again, you can do it without this for sure, but you're going to have situations where you're just not dealing enough damage, especially when you get to higher CT levels. And then the fourth thing I would say, and which helped me a lot, was mitigation from damage. And this was probably the second or the third last thing that I added to this build. Before I had this, I was noticing that in especially fights with enemies that are shooting at me, or enemies that are poisoning me, or basically anything that's hitting me from a range, once I stand still and I return fire, I was taking a lot of damage, and it was often, especially at higher tiers like 13, 14, or 15, it was causing me to die. Once I added this, those problems fucking went away. So definitely those would be the 4 things. As I said, Killing Spree, very good primary Assault Rifle with tactical variant I would suggest, Bloodlust, and mitigation from damage. Now, what would I do to improve this build? To improve this build, I would say that first, as I've said, get rid of Plate Piercer, which is over there, and get rid of Toxic Piercer, and somehow find a way to introduce Euthanizer, which is off the Plague Sower's hands set on here, which gives you another increase to damage, another increase of damage to targets that are poisoned, which is phenomenal because everything is always poisoned, everything's always toxic. And then the other thing would be Sharp Eye, which is essentially another Bloodlust effect, which would just further on stack additional damage on top. So Sharp Eye, of course, comes from a legendary called Sergio's Beret. And so I think if I was able to work those 2 mods into this here as well, and eliminate some of the other ones, or the 2 that I don't like on here, I would see an even bigger damage increase with this. Even though at the moment right now, like I said, this doesn't really have a problem with dealing with anything. It'll just make everything go even faster. Another thing, one last thing that I'd love to try on here that I just haven't gotten to drop, and if you have this weapon, give it a try. It might be fucking ridiculous. Is the Air to the Desert Assault Rifle Legendary, which is already in a tactical variant. That has a level 3 mod on it called Sandstorm, and I have seen Sandstorm and Killing Spree combined, and it's just ridiculous. So that's something that I would love to try on here. I am farming all the fucking time to try and get an Air to the Desert, and definitely if I get it, it's something that I'll show on the channel because I think it'll, look pretty badass. But that's it. I know I said I wasn't going to make a super long one, and here we are, fucking 20 minutes. I'm so sorry, but I hope that this explains the reasoning behind some of the decisions that I made with the build, even though some of them are fairly straightforward, and, I don't really think that there was another way that you could have built it that you get as much bang for your buck, or as much utility out of. However, please let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions about any of this or any suggestions how to make it better. I'm fucking all ears. Go for it. Leave a like if you like something like this, or leave a dislike if you didn't like this, and also consider subscribing if you found this useful, or things like this or the previous videos that I'm recording in the past week. I'll definitely be bringing more of that to the channel, and subscribing just, you know, helps me do it quicker. But in any case, have a great morning, have a great afternoon, have a great evening wherever you are, and until next video, fucking cheers.